Let's watch a couple more clips of Trump being a bumbling idiot while talking to reporters. This was shortly after he officially renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, because when are we going to get to lowering the grocery prices again? But with all the madness we're going to discuss here, we might not even get to that.
You suffered a couple of court losses, Mr. President, and J.D. Vance said judges aren't allowed to control the executive power. What's your take on that?
Well, we're going to see what happens. We have a long way to go, and we're talking about fraud, waste, abuse, and when a president can't look for fraud and waste and abuse, we don't have a country anymore. So we're very disappointed with the judges that would make such a ruling, but we have a long way to go. We have to find all of the fraud that's going on. We have tremendous fraud, tremendous waste, and tremendous abuse, and theft, by the way. And the day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision.
Yeah, and guys, conveniently, all of the fraud is in the agencies that help push back against Russian influence and Putin's influence, or prevent the tech bro billionaires around Trump from doing scams on the working class people. So those are the ones we have to go for those reasons, of course. But the massive government contracts, the oil and tech subsidies, $1 trillion Pentagon budget that never will pass an audit, all of that is fine to exist. As we've pointed out, it's been nothing but lies when they're claiming this fraud they find. Notice how Elon is never posting any evidence. He's just posting empty claims. And now that a judge has ruled that they are overstepping their bounds, these are powers of the legislative branch, not the executive, they are freaking out and even openly hinting now at defying the judiciary in the judge's ruling. That would then be the executive, which is overstepping both the legislative and judicial branches of government. That would be thwarting the quote equal parts, the checks and balances, effectively solidifying a dictatorship.
Would you accept Palestinian refugees into the United States since you're looking to other countries to accept them?
I think it's a very far distance for them to travel, but I'd have to look at individual cases. But I do think that coming into the United States, we've taken a lot of people, but coming into the United States, it's a long way for them to travel. They're far away from their families and their friends and everything else. I think they'd be very happy staying in the general area in a place that was safe, where they could be safe and lead a good life. They don't want to go back to Gaza. As I said, I've said it a lot. They only go back because they have no alternative. They don't want to go back to Gaza. So we'll see. We hope that we'll be helped by Egypt. We hope that we'll be helped by Jordan. We hope that we'll be helped by other countries. We hope that some of the, like Saudi Arabia and others, can spend some money on it.
Yeah, guys, they only go back to their homes, lots of time their family homes for generations, the only land they've ever known, surrounded by their culture and peoples, because they have to, obviously. They only consider those lands holy because they have to. I'm sorry, I have a hard time taking stupidity to this level serious at times. Those Arab countries are also hundreds of miles away from Gaza. The idea that they would be comfortable moving away from their land to countries with entirely different cultures and people, of whom don't even have the infrastructure to comfortably take them in, because why? Why do we think they're going to be comfortable? Oh, because they're the same color, right? This is grossly ignorant. And the fact that we now have the president of the United States painting a crime against humanity. I mean, this is clear-cut ethnic cleansing, definitionally, that he's pushing for. And he's normalizing it and even glamorizing it to make it seem like it'll be a good thing for them.
Can you tell us about your conversation with Vladimir Putin?
I don't want to do that now. No, we're trying to end that war. It's a war that would have never happened if I were president. Would have never happened. But we're making progress.
I don't get what is this revisionist history from these absolute Russian puppets. The MAGA party is the party of Russia. Do not ever get that mistaken. It is Russia first. The war started in 2014. The idea that it started under Biden is the biggest propaganda line ever spewed by these Russian clowns. Putin invaded Crimea in hopes that he could return to Mother Russia. These people hope that they could get away with these lies in hopes that most people won't know the history, because history is boring. But if you made it this far in the video, I might as well just give you the rundown, because I'm tired of people acting like nobody knows, right? The Soviet Union broke up in 1991. Ukraine largely has been on its own since 1992, but it's never truly been free of fear from Russia taking back over it or some sort of interference or intervention from Russia. This is why why Ukraine wanted to sign the Budapest Memorandum in 1994, which is where we guarantee them protection to denuclearize from Russia ever invading them. It's for that exact future protection. Move on 10 years later, there is a highly corrupt election in 2004 where it is widely accepted that Russia interfered to install their guy, Yanukovych, who was super pro-Russia. He was pretty much going to keep Ukraine under Russia as an arm of Russia. See, Russia was fine with Ukraine being separate from them per se, as long as they were essentially just an arm of Russia and Russian interests, because that way they could see themselves eventually getting them back and it wouldn't be a problem. This led to them again meddling in the next election in 2010. This one widely seen as corrupt as well, where Russia went in to make sure their guy Yanukovych stayed in because Ukraine was largely moving away from pro-Russia sentiment at this time. But this one led to some backlash because of that. Yanukovych was already seen as corrupt at this point, enriching himself, being super biased towards Russian interests and not what was best for Ukraine at the time or what the people wanted. And so he was also massively losing popularity. He then, after this election, goes on to reject a widely popular among the Ukrainian people EU deal for economic gain, and it's like a trade deal essentially, in favor of closer economic ties with Russia that would isolate them from the rest of the world. It led to massive protests and outrage across Ukraine. This was known as Euromaidan. This was a huge thing. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians ended up getting involved in this. Long story short, however, there was one event in February, and I think it was 2013, 2014. It was called Bloody Sunday, where the government, at Yanukovych's direction, assumably, killed over 100 Ukrainians who were peacefully protesting. This led to Yanukovych agreeing to an EU deal the next day that would set up to form a democratic government with normal elections. It would have reduced the power from these authoritarian type levels and returned it to the people. The next day after this, Yanukovych flees Ukraine into Russia because of course he does. He's a Russian puppet. And then in a democratic election where there's no claims of widespread fraud or interference of any kind for the first time in literally ever in Ukraine's existence, a pro-Western candidate wins with 54% of the vote, which is a massive mandate, signaling Ukraine's shift away from Russia and towards pro-Western, more economic interests, in which Russia instantly responds by invading Crimea within months, breaking the Budapest Memorandum, and committing an act of war. This is when the war started. And then to dispel other lies Trump liked to tell and MAGA likes to tell because they say no wars under Trump and all of that, obviously wars still happened under Trump's presidency. They fought all throughout Trump's presidency. The reason that there was supposed to be a peace under Trump's presidency that these people signal to is because a peace deal was signed between the two parties in 2015. So it would have had nothing to do with Trump, even if they were peaceful during his time, like MAGA pretends. But yeah, thousands of Ukrainian civilians died. Thousands of soldiers on both sides died with continuous fighting all throughout. This just led to it then escalating in the 2020s, 2021. The war has been waged by Russia from the very moment that they felt they couldn't exercise complete political control over Ukraine because they never truly saw them as a sovereign nation. They were just fine because one, the Soviet Union had just disbanded. Russia just lost so much influence and power that it had over the region. It was kind of walking on eggshells. So what it saw as the best geopolitical strategy was, okay, we'll give Ukraine its space, but as long as we can still exercise complete control over them. They had a base in Crimea, a naval base. They had some sort of military control over them. They were obviously meddling in their elections so they could exercise complete political control. And the second they felt this threatened and that Ukraine, okay, might actually be a sovereign nation, that might actually make its own decisions, that might not just benefit Russian interests, now all of a sudden they want to wage war. And then the Russian propaganda for this is to spin this as, no, United States influenced Ukraine to pull away from Russia, and it's all because NATO is expanding east and this, and it's none of that is true. None of that is bared out in history, and it's just people doing their bidding as Putin's favorite agent. MAGA is now the party of Putin.